Okay. All right, so welcome everyone to our writing circle on proofreading. My name's Kerry. Lovely to have you all with me today. And we will get started. So just to start off, QT acknowledges the Turrbal and Yagara as the First Nations owners of the lands where QT now stands. We pay respect to their elders' laws, customs and creation spirits. We recognise these lands have always been places of teaching, research and learning, and QT acknowledges the important role that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people play within the QT community. So today's resources, I haven't actually put them on Blackboard. I did run out of time, unfortunately, but I will put them up as soon as we finish the class today. And the recording may be up this afternoon. If not, it'll be up first thing in the morning. But I've just put the link in there for you so that you know. I've just popped that in the chat, and I will put the slides up once we're finished today. So for those of you who haven't been to a writing circle before, we have workshops and we have writing circles. So obviously today's a writing circle, so they're interactive. We use exemplars. You bring your own writing and you check your own writing through the class. The workshops provide an overview of the theory and principles of writing practices, an area specific to that session, and include a peer discussion. We also often have the peer discussions in the writing circles as well, because peer discussions are very good for all of you to engage in. So today, as I said, a writing circle, and we're focusing on proofreading skills and helping you to be more effective proofreaders. We're going to look at some useful strategies. We're going to proofread some exemplars, and you're going to practice proofreading your own writing. So we've got our introduction right now, then just a little bit of a spiel as to why proofreading is important. You obviously think it is because you're here today, which is great. We'll look at some strategies. We've got 2 exemplars and of course your proofreading time at the end, and we will have time for a Q&A as well. Right, straight up, we have a poll question. What is your upcoming research milestone? It is really interesting for me to know these things, to see who I've got in with me today. You can see the poll up there. Obviously, there's no right or wrong. You can be coming at any stage, but it is interesting to know who we have in the class. All right, that's great. Thank you. So you can see the results there. We've got a couple confirmation, a couple at final seminar, and 1 person's lodging. Ooh, exciting. All right, excellent. Thank you for that. All right, good. So really, you know, as I said, with your proofreading, doesn't really matter where you're at, but I do think it's interesting to know at what point people are starting to think about their proofreading. So did you receive or did you open the UniHub event reminder email that was sent yesterday? Hopefully, yes. If you didn't see it or you didn't notice it, when you are registered to one of our writing sessions or any of the grad sessions, you do get a reminder email the day before. So please click on that just to double check if there's anything you needed to do. So for this session, I did want you to bring your own writing. If you haven't got your writing ready, perhaps during this next little bit, have a quick look at what you could use when we are doing the practicing of the proofreading. Recommended, I would love if you can have 3 to 4 consecutive paragraphs from a section of a chapter. That would be great. Paragraphs that you haven't received feedback on yet. So if you can find something in all of your documents that would be appropriate, that would be excellent. Obviously, a Word document is a good idea so that you can edit it and make the changes. Obviously, it's too late now to print, I would say, or if you have a printer with you, you could print it. But yeah, just keep that in mind now. If you haven't already got something prepared, try to do that before we sort of get to that last half hour or so, or 45 minutes of the session, so you've got something ready. So the exemplar activities today, we always do exemplar activities in my writing circles. I usually try to use a range of exemplars, of course, because as we just saw, everyone's up to different stages. And of course, you're all in focusing on different research topics. So as always with exemplars, you know, they're not perfect because documents are usually never perfect, but they are good. They're always going to be examples that there's some effective writing practices in there that I'm demonstrating to you or modeling for you. And I do try to provide a range of fields of study. Your supervisors would probably have access to even more exemplars, so please ask them for exemplars that you can do similar activities to what we do in the writing circles. That's a really, really good way to learn and improve. Now, if the exemplars that we look at are really nothing to do with your research topic, it doesn't matter, okay? It's about the writing practices, not necessarily the topics. And I always choose topics that we can understand. I don't choose really, really difficult, you know, ones that you have to have a lot of prior knowledge. So, because I do get some feedback to say that, you know, oh, the exemplar wasn't about my topic. So you know, and obviously I can't get it exactly to all your topics. So, but I do try to provide a range of them. And you'll see there also, I've got a note in there about the limited time in these sessions. We can't stay together forever or the whole day. I wish we could. So, you know, if you run out of time, you have access to all of the resources and the activity sheets. I'll upload the activity sheet in a minute. So with today's exemplars, so you can continue doing them. And if you ever have a question, just email me. Okay, I'm always here. I'm always happy to help. All right, so let me, on that note, I'll just actually upload the exemplar now. And in this time, if you haven't got your writing ready, maybe you could do that. Where is it? Okay. Ah, there we go. I didn't like that. 1 second. There we go. All right, so that's just downloading now in the chat. So you guys will have access to that now. And we'll be doing that looking at that in a little while. Okay. So to start you thinking, as well as having your writing ready, I'd like you to think of 2 aspects of your writing that you already know that you need to improve. It would be around some feedback that you've received. It could be something about a grammar point. It could be spelling. I find that unlikely, but maybe you need to improve your vocabulary, maybe the flow and structure of your paragraphs, maybe connecting your paragraphs, maybe putting your so what into your sections, you know, stating the value of your research. So have a think about what you already know that you need to improve and write those 2 points at the top of that draft of your own writing that you're going to proofread later on. Even if you've only got 1 point, whatever it might be, just pop that in just to get you thinking about the parts of your writing that you would specifically be focusing on when you proofread, because they're things that you've been told before that you need to improve. So of course, you want to make sure that you have made those improvements. Okay, another poll question. So thinking about what you know that you need to improve, Let's have a look. All right, so what do you think? Any of these sound familiar to you? You can choose more than one. I've made this one multiple choice. And by the way, the polls are always anonymous as well. So yeah, don't worry about it. No one will know. So you can choose more than one. Oh, we've got quite a spread. Right, I think everybody's put something in. All right, so have a look at that. Really evenly spread through, isn't it? So I think some of you have put more than one, which is fine. Okay, so the good news is the proofreading strategies that we'll be talking about today look at all of these things, of course. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so let's get into it about why is proofreading so important? Why are we having this writing circle? You know, so we're going to have a look at that. And also I've just got that little note in there about your student ID numbers. I know most of you have put your ID numbers in. Thank you very much. But if you haven't, just pop it in. It just makes it easy for us to record your attendance. All right, so let's have a look at proofreading. So academic literacy is all about our ability to, of course, read and write, but it also is talking about our understanding of our field of study, our ability to communicate with our supervisors, our peers, and of course, other researchers in our field. So it's really an important thing to continue improving your academic literacy as you go through your candidature. So the other end of the idea of improving academic literacy is that there's an assumption that reading and writing, basic skills, most people have them, most people can read and write to a good level. And the thing is, in reality, the type of writing that you guys are doing, it's not basic at all. And it's also quite different to a lot of type of writing, isn't it? And it really challenges our processing, our problem solving, our confidence as well. We have specific skills related to thesis writing or writing a publication, that we have discourses that are related to a field of study that you not only have to understand when you read, but of course write as well. We're constantly questioning ourselves. Am I doing this right? Remembering this is a training degree, so you wouldn't know how to do everything straight away. Worrying, are you going to find anything in your research? Does anyone care about my research? So all of these things contribute to making academic literacy improvement challenging, but it certainly is something that you can do, because the more you read and the more you write, the better you get, and seeking feedback and all of that process that you're going through in your candidature. So obviously you're going to increase your knowledge of your field by reading. You're going to improve your communication skills in terms of speaking, but also writing. And what we want is positive student identities or researcher identities and feeling belonging within your research community. So all of those things link into academic literacy. And by improving your proofreading as well as seeking feedback, you're going to get more confident. Your writing skills are going to improve. And of course, your documents are going to get better as well. So as part of that academic literacy process and improving your skills, of course, drafts. We do talk about draft writing a lot, because you will write a lot of drafts. I'm not going to put a number, but you will have a lot, okay? And that's normal and it's fine, and each draft improves and improves. And don't sort of think to yourself, well, I don't know enough, I haven't read enough, I haven't thought enough. Draft writing, it's product of your thinking. Put all your ideas and thoughts into words and then refine later. And that's where, again, the proofreading comes in, doesn't it? You know, you'll have a draft that's quite messy, then you'll proofread it, you'll make it a little bit better, you'll proofread it, improve, proofread again, and then send it off for feedback. Another thing with your drafts as well is when you're writing those messy drafts, those first, second, third drafts, try not to edit as you write. That's something I'm really bad at. I can take a day to write a paragraph because I want everything to be perfect the first time. So don't be like that. Just write, and then you polish and you proofread and you make it better. You'll pump out much more words and be more productive if you separate the two, if you have your draft writing time and your proofreading time. So even though proofreading is integral, separate them out: draft writing, proofreading. And my advice would be leave a draft for a day before you proofread it, just so that you come back with fresh eyes and potentially things that you were agonizing about before, you'll get really quickly. So that quote there by Peter Elbow is a good one. He's basically a prolific writer and researcher in the field of writing pedagogy. He's a professor of English. He's written a whole stack of books about writing practices, and that's one of his big things is, as you can see, meaning is not what you start with but what you end up with. So you'll have all these words, this big jumble of all of your thoughts, and eventually it'll be into a beautiful draft ready to receive feedback. So as I always say, it's all about the reader. So one of the other really important things about proofreading is you got to proofread before you're seeking feedback. Okay, so we don't want to frustrate the reader with errors that we would have picked up with our proofreading. So that's another really key tip that I would say. Don't ask someone to read your document until you've proofread it. We don't want to make the reader work hard. So yes, your proofreading won't pick up every single thing, but certainly any really silly errors you would pick up in your proofreading. So when you're sending something to the reader, part of your proofreading should be making sure that it's very clear what the meaning is there. How does this section of writing you're sending to them, how does that link to your topic and the significance of your research topic and the contribution you're making? So that's about the research problem, isn't it? And the research aims. So be really clear and make sure that that's something you're looking for when you're proofreading. We'll look at the strategies to do that in a little while. And then, of course, because it's all about the reader, we need to get into the reader's shoes. We forget we're not writing for ourselves. We're writing for someone else. It's a dialogue between you and the reader. So really keep that in your mind, not when you're doing those messy drafts, but when you're polishing and proofreading up. So that's why the value and significance of your research needs to be super clear, because you're having this dialogue with the reader and you want to engage them and you want them to think your research is just as important as you think it is as well. You need to persuade them. Another really important thing about being in the reader's shoes is focusing on why you're writing each section. Why is this information important that you're giving them? And then make sure that that purpose is really clear and of course it's achieved. So just a really quick activity now. If whatever you're writing right at the moment, the chapter, the section, what's the purpose of that chapter or section at the moment that you're writing? Write in the chat now if you want to share. So, are you writing a lit review at the moment? Are you writing methodology, discussion? Whatever it is, the section that you've just been working on in the last couple of days, what's the purpose of that document in terms of your study, your thesis, or whatever milestone you're up to? Does anyone want to share? Okay, so in the chat, introduce my research to the reader, describe what the researcher is, our area is, why it's important, and what my contribution is. Yep, and the purpose of that, to get them on board, to make sure they're informed about exactly what you're doing and why, and persuade them that it's important and valuable. So most of the time, the purpose of your sections are to persuade the reader that your research is needed, that it's important, that there's gaps, and that's valuable and significant. Okay, so keep that in your mind all of the time, that there has to be words and sentences within every section that's persuading, right? So that's going to be the purpose pretty much all the time. Or maybe it's to give a bit of background knowledge, or maybe it's to critically analyze some previous studies. Okay. All right, let's keep going. So we're talking about proofreading your own writing today, but maybe at some point you and your supervisory team, you might decide that you want to get some professional editing or proofreading done. So make sure that you're clear. So a proofreader will really just look at surface errors, okay? An editor will look more deeply and try to give you ways to be clearer with your expression. So obviously one is going to cost more than the other. Now, realistically, the best way, if you want to engage a professional proofreader or editor, word of mouth is going to be a really valuable thing. So ask your supervisors, ask your peers, and I'm just putting into the chat here. There is information about thesis editing on HiQ, and there are some tips there as well. So also you'll need to figure out at what point are you going to do it, before the final seminar or your MPhil seminar, or you're going to do it before you lodge for external examination. So a few things to think about. I had a proofreader. There's nothing wrong with that. I think everybody definitely needs feedback and needs someone to check the document as a whole. Now, if you and your supervisors are confident that you can have that all in control, that's fantastic. But if you think someone else coming in and looking at it would be beneficial, then that's also a good idea. All right, so hopefully you're convinced now about how important proofreading is. And let's have a look at some strategies. So, like I said before, I really would encourage you to separate your writing and proofreading time. Proofreading and writing are completely different, right? Okay, so you're hopefully scheduling in your lots of writing time most days. Maybe you're doing writing sprints or whatever it is that you're doing. Schedule some specific time for proofreading, hopefully a big chunk, you know. You can go back and proofread, you know, 3 or 4 paragraphs if you wanted to, but it might be more beneficial and better, more effective if you can have a bigger chunk, you know, like a whole section maybe. But yes, schedule specific proofreading time into your schedule. And the other tips, print and read aloud. I'm going to try and convince you as to why that is a good idea. But, you know, if you print it and you read aloud, you're going to hear, right? And your eyes are going to see more than one if you just read straight on the screen. As I said, proofreading is not writing. So when you're writing, try not to proofread. And remember at the start, I asked you to think about your writing weaknesses as such that you've know from feedback, and you can focus on those as well and really take your time. The key to proofreading is attention to detail. If you're racing and trying to get it done really quickly, you're going to miss a lot of things. So really take your time. So why print? So there's been quite a bit of research, would you believe, around this, and it helps you focus if you have it printed and you're on a piece of paper. Our eyes skip around when we're staring at the screen and you don't take it all in. You can see there from that first one, that first researcher, proofreading printed text increases accuracy and concentration and decreases fatigue. So 3 good things right there. And then again, there's another one, comprehension, fatigue, engagement with the text. Now, that third one there about the cognitive map mechanism. So what that means is that our brains make a mental map of a text, because we all understand what a text looks like, okay? So obviously in English, we go from left to right and we go down the page. So our brain knows that already. And so when we're looking at the screen, it's harder for our brain to look at the overall structure of a whole lot of paragraphs, right? Because we're having to scroll. We're constantly scrolling. So once we've scrolled down, what was up here is no longer there. So it's much easier for us to process when we can see it on a piece of paper. And then again about fatigue as well. And, you know, we're all looking at computers a lot, aren't we? So honestly, if you can print, I know it's not environmentally friendly, but, you know, maybe you can make the print a little bit smaller. Maybe you can put on both sides of the page. But honestly, I really, really would suggest that you print. You'll be much more effective. Why read aloud? Okay, there's a good quote there from Elbow. Readers will find your writing clearer if it is understandable when it's read aloud. When you read aloud, you become better at writing clear and easy to read sentences. So not only are you looking at what you've written, you can hear what you've written, and you'll be reading, and you'll come across a sentence that never ends, okay? And you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's too long. You'll see where you've repeated vocab in one sentence or within a paragraph, and you'll hear it and you'll say, oh, okay, I need to mix up my vocab. You'll hear when you've jumped topics, and you'll also hear when your sentence isn't making sense, right? So print, read aloud. I promise that you will reap the benefits. As I said, attention to detail is so essential. Don't miss things by reading on the screen and racing. Have a keen eye, correct silly errors by reading aloud. As I said, you'll hear it. You know, be consistent with your fonts. I see it all the time. All of a sudden there's a different font, and that's just a little minor error, but it's annoying for the reader. Make sure you're consistent with your capitalizations. I've got that example there because I see this all the time. Sometimes someone will capitalize the word section or the word chapter, and then other times they don't. Mix up your vocabulary. Again, like I said before, if you've got using the same vocabulary over and over again, then it's not engaging for the reader. So if you print and read aloud, you will actually notice when you're doing that. Thesaurus.com, I've just put it into the chat. Have I spelled it wrong? Yeah, I have. Sorry. Now, the reason why I like this one, you'll see when you go in, is the synonyms are broken up according to context. So in English, we have a lot of words that have different meanings in different contexts. So that really helps, and it's quicker for you to find a synonym. Spelling, choose one, UK or US. Usually in Australia, we would use UK spelling. But if you're publishing in a journal that's in the US, then obviously you'd use US spelling. And your citations, okay? Again, that's going to be really annoying for the reader if you have errors with how you're referencing in your text. So make sure you double check that and that you're doing it correctly. Okay, so my advice is with your proofreading. So I've already said, let's separate writing and proofreading because they're two different things that you're doing. So then when you're proofreading, my advice is to separate it into macro proofreading. So reading your sections and your chapters, which is the coherence of your document. Then the next step is the micro proofreading, which is each individual paragraph and your sentences and words, which is cohesion of your document, and looking at your academic conventions, your referencing style. Now, so 3 different things to do within proofreading. First one is the macro, then you do your micro, then look at academic conventions. If you divide it into these things, you won't make those silly errors. You will pick everything up and your attention to detail will be really good. Now, I'm going to give you a poll. Why would I recommend that you do the macro proofreading before the micro proofreading? I know that there's a question in the chat. I'm going to answer that in a second. Let me just put the poll up for you. All right, so why would I recommend to do the macro, so the coherence, the sections and the chapters, before you do the micro? See what you think. Again, it's all anonymous. So in the chat, with spelling, do I have to write my thesis in UK? I'm used to the US, so sometimes I'm not sure. I would say use UK because you're in Australia and that's the spelling that we use. Double check what your supervisors want. Maybe they won't care, but I think they should care. I think you should be using UK, but as long as you're consistent, that's my main advice. So if your supervisors are okay to be in US, then that's okay with me as well. But I would, usually we use the UK spelling. I hope that helps. All right, okay. I think just about everybody is in. All right, so everybody's correct. Well done. So yes, to examine the big picture first, but also to be more time efficient. We're going to look at why it is more time efficient, or why I think it is anyway. So yes, both A and C, and number A, letter A was right as well. Awesome. So you're on board. On board with the macro first. Good. All right, why macro proofread first? To make the most of your time. So if we can get the big picture clear first, then we're going to be better at getting the cohesion, so those paragraph level issues like sentence structure and vocabulary. Then we can focus on making sure they're exactly right as well. So if we went in and we just looked at every specific paragraph first and made them all perfect, what we might then find is, oh, they're not linking, they're not connecting, my main points aren't quite clear, it's not flowing in the way that I want it to. So, which would then mean you've got to go back to the big picture, fix all of that up, and then maybe you're going to have to go back into your paragraphs and rejig those again. So, you know, and the more you proofread and the better you get at proofreading, you might even be able to do both at once, okay? But when you are doing your macro proofreading, I'm not saying that if you notice an error, or you notice that a sentence needs to be fixed, or you notice that it's not quite right, I'm not saying don't do anything about it. You've got 2 choices. You can just quickly go in if it's not going to take your mind and your focus from the big picture stuff, or just leave yourself a note and just say, oh, this needs to be fixed, so that you know when you come back. You'll figure it out. You'll figure out the best way that suits you. So when we're focusing on the macro proofreading, remember what I said at the beginning is that every section, every chapter needs to have a purpose. What exactly are you doing here? And most of the time, you are persuading the reader that your research is important and valuable and significant. Okay, so that's one of the key things about the macro proofreading, is making sure that in every section, it's very clear the aim of what you're trying to tell the reader, and that you're being persuasive, and that they know exactly why this information is important that you're giving them, and how it links to your research topic, how it links to your aims, how it links to the other sections, the other chapters, right? So that big picture, keeping the reader engaged and making sure that they are on board with the value of your study. So you see why doing that macro first you know. And if you notice, oh, I haven't actually done that well enough, you can go into those paragraphs and quickly make a note and say, oh, I need to add a sentence that says, you know, how this links to something else that I've provided before. So we're going to hopefully macro proofread first. So that's why, you know, for your writing that you're bringing today, I said, if you can, bring a section or at least the first 3 or 4 paragraphs of a section. So if you can proofread, so say in your lit review for your confirmation document or your proposal, say in your lit review, you have 5 sections. Okay, I've made that up. Maybe you have more, maybe you have less. If you have 5 sections, I would read section 1, read section 2, 3, 4, and 5 first, then read the chapter as a whole and see how those sections. So you've got the section right. Let's see how they all fit in together. Maybe this section needs to go up here now. Maybe we need to take a paragraph out of a section and put it somewhere else. So this is all the things I'm talking about, macro proofreading. Then once you're happy with that structure and the flow, then you go into each paragraph and make sure it's saying exactly what you want to. Maybe you need to make some sentences more clear or whatever it might be. Sometimes you'll be doing all of that at once, but as you are improving, if you can divide it up in that way, I think you'll find that you'll be successful and effective, and it'll make the most of your time and, of course, make your documents much better too. Now, also, you know, I'm giving all of my tips, okay, based on research, based on writing practices and all of those sorts of things, but you'll figure out your own way as well, okay? So try to take what I'm suggesting and then figure out the best thing for you. All right, so macro proofreading the section. So print a whole section so that you can examine the main points. So one way you could do this, so you've printed out your section. What's the main point of each paragraph? Write a little note, okay? The main point of this is this, main point of this one is this. And then once you've got your main points, are they flowing in a logical way? Do you lead the reader through? Are you building and scaffolding the points, or have you jumped topics, or have you explained a point that actually needed to be coming later? You know, so do they connect and build a clear argument? And does every one of those main points link to your subheading, or have you gone off topic? Is there something missing in there? Do you need to add another paragraph, a linking paragraph maybe, right? So you've got your section and you're just looking at those main points. Now, as you're doing that, you might notice one of your paragraphs is not structured very well. Leave yourself a note. This paragraph's a bit weird. I need to fix it. But yes, it's still the main point is the one that I want. Next thing is check the whole section to make sure that the aim of the section is clear, that you've achieved the aim that you said, you know, that you wanted to achieve. And again, is the value and the significance of your research explicit and clear. I do not want you to have a section ever in any chapter that does not link back to value, research problem, research aim, or whatever it is makes sense, okay? Otherwise, if you have a whole section that doesn't tell the reader the purpose or what you're trying to achieve or what the aim or how it links to your aim or the problem, why is it there, right? It has to be very, very clear why this information is important. It could be as simple as saying something like, therefore, it's important to gain insight into blah, whatever you're studying. Do you see? You're persuading and you're telling the reader, hey, I just told you all this stuff about the research gap or the research problem. And then because of this, we need more insight. And oh, crazy, but you're going to be the one to give the insight. So it could be just a sentence at some point in every single section. So when you're doing your macro proofreading, You're looking at the structure and the flow and the logic and building, and you're also making sure the significance of your study is there and that you're persuading the reader and engaging the reader. So a lot, isn't it? Which is why I recommend separating out. All right, so then once you've got your sections and you're happy with them, look at them as a whole in the chapter and then make sure the sections are working well. Is there something missing? Do the sections build on each other? Did you do what you said you would do at the beginning of the chapter, right? Did you achieve the aims? You know, because at the beginning of a chapter, you say this chapter discusses blah, 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 and does something else. Did you actually do that? Yep, double check that. And again, is the contribution and significance clear? That's all about the big picture, isn't it? So, but macro proofreading, essential, very, very important. Micro proofreading, essential as well. You want to check all your paragraphs for the topic sentences. Are they clear? Do they link to your subheading? Grammar and sentence structure correct? Appropriate tense? Is your vocabulary and word choice where it should be? Are you using transition signals? In addition, therefore, however? Is there one main point in each paragraph, or are you trying to put too much in? Are your paragraphs too short? Are they too long? And again, is there something to say why your research is valuable? Now, you might not have that in every single paragraph, okay, but definitely in every single section. And of course, academic conventions. Yay, everyone loves referencing. So it will annoy your examiner, your supervisors, if you can't cite your sources correctly. Now, but it's not even just about citing your sources. Your referencing style governs the format of your document. So again, that idea of attention to detail, be consistent. I know not all of you are using APA, but if you are, you should not be using APA 6. APA 7's been out for 18 months now, and it's actually better than APA 6. It's simpler. Okay, so go straight to the source. Go straight to apa.org. That's got everything you need. It's basically the website will give of your referencing style. It'll be basically a style manual where you can check everything. Quoting, citing multiple sources, labeling tables and figures, margins, fonts, all of those things are linked to your referencing style. So make sure you're onto that. So last poll. Interesting to know. Again, it's anonymous. What do you think about your knowledge of referencing conventions? Where are you at? All right, good. Most of you are feeling good. If you feel like you need to improve, that's good to know as well. Yeah. And anyone needing any tips, APA styles, my jam. I do love it. Well, I like it enough. All right, cool, good. You know, it's very easy to sort of think, oh, it's not actually very important. It's more important, my research. Yes, of course, your research and your data and your analysis is more important, but it's still something that is a skill that you need. And, you know, if you still need to be looking up the style manuals to double check, that's fine as well. You know, that's what they're there for, to double check. Formatting a long Word document, really important as well. I suggest you, if you don't know exactly what I mean by that, I think you will need to go into HiQ and have a look. I'm just putting the link. So it's about your table of contents, your margins, your headers, your page breaks, and setting up a long Word document. Formatting can take a long time if you leave it till the very end before you lodge or do your final thesis. So get into good habits as soon as you can and make sure all of your documents are formatted correctly. That would be a good way to do it. And I've just put the link into the chat for the HiQ information. Seeking feedback. Yep, once you've proofread, seek feedback, and then that'll help you with your proofreading next time, because you'll be given some constructive feedback that says, okay, you need to do these things, and then you can double check when you're proofreading next time. Feedback is so, so important. It's essential to help you improve your writing, your documents, and everything that all of your skills that you're working on and developing. So we do have HDR writing peer feedback sessions. There's about 3 per month. I can potentially put on more if we have more people interested. There's a link there for you to register if you're interested in coming. There's one on Monday and then one a couple of weeks after that, as you can see. Really great sessions, and will help you with your proofreading skills, of course, as well. All right, let's have a look now at our exemplars. We're running fairly much on time, which is good. So why do we do these exemplars? Because by examining and discussing authentic texts, it will help you to see where you can improve. It'll help you to see where you're doing already really well. You'll be able to self-reflect, and it helps you to be able to make judgments about the quality of other people's writing and, of course, your own as well. Now, the really important thing when we're examining these exemplars, as I said before, it doesn't matter if you're not an expert on that topic. I'm not. You think about it, what I do every day. I read people's documents, and I'm not an expert in their field, but I can understand what they're doing enough to be able to help them to improve. So the beauty for you guys here is you're not helping these people to improve exactly. What you're doing is actually analyzing, pulling apart, and looking at the things that you think were engaging, that you think were good, effective writing practices, and the things that you think, maybe this could have been done a little bit different or a little bit better. So what we're going to do is practice that 3-step proofreading process. So what was that? Macro, micro, and academic conventions. We're not going to do much on the academic conventions, actually, because everybody's going to be doing something different, but certainly the first 2. The other thing to remember is we're in a class, right? So we don't have endless amounts of time, which means we're going to do it in a fairly compressed and quick way, okay? But just relax, be the reader. There's no pressure. You will have the slides after the session. You already have the activity sheet. I'm here if you have any questions. So if you get a little bit like, oh, this is going too quickly for me, just relax and know that you can go back later. Whoop. Nope. All right, so I'm actually going to go out of the slides. 1 second. There we go. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, so we're proofreading 2 exemplars using the 3-step process. The first one we're going to do together, then you're going to break into your breakout rooms, which is going to be fabulous because you're all going to learn from each other. So please stay for that. All right, so this is a methodology section of a research proposal. I've adapted it a little bit for this session. Now, the things I want you to look at, step 1, macro proofreading. Now, look at these questions. This is the sorts of things that when I was talking about the macro proofreading that we're looking for at this step. Okay, now, when you macro proofread your work, you won't exactly have all of these questions, right? Particularly F. You're going to have specific questions related to your purpose and your aim of that section, okay? But in general, every section should have explicit information around the research problem, aims, and all the gaps. All right, so look at here. What are the aims? How are those aims achieved? Do the paragraphs have a clear connection? which sentences state a research aim, is the value clear, and then we've got a little specific question because this is a methodology section. And then we'll come back to step 2 in a second. Righto, so here we go. Now, the other thing, remember with exemplars as well, we pull out a little bit, don't we? We haven't read the first 2 chapters, but it doesn't matter. A section should stand alone. We should be able to read it and have an idea of what's happening. Okay, so again, if you sort of are thinking, oh, but I don't know everything that came before, don't worry about that. Just relax and go with what's exactly in front of you. Okay, so we're just going to read through. I'm going to highlight a few bits here and there, and then we're going to have a look at that idea of the big picture, the macro proofreading. How are we doing for time? Not too bad. The aim of the present study is to identify factors that predict team performance in simulated cardiac arrest scenarios. Okay, that's not bad, is it? Is to identify factors. Now, by the way, remember, this is a research proposal, right? Data collected during simulated cardiac arrest will be analysed to identify factors that predict team performance in emergency medical situations. Okay, I think that's pretty clear too. The sample for the proposed study will comprise of groups of health professionals attending training sessions at the university, blah, blah. Data will be collected from at least 60 teams, 4 members per team. Nice sample. During their standard debriefing sessions, all participants will complete a process questionnaire. And we've got a little bit about the questionnaire. Videotapes will then be analysed to determine the quality of each team's performance. Multiple regression analyses will be performed. Based on the multiple regression analysis results, 3 poorly functioning teams will be selected for case study analysis. Videotapes will be analysed using the framework of active theory to identify factors again. So this is all about identifying that contributed to the team's poor task performance. The study findings will provide strategies that may be used to improve higher education training programs. Right. I think this is a very nice broad overview of the methods or the research design. Let's keep going. While simulated arrests are an accepted method of training, so you get what we mean here, simulated arrest, there's not actually a patient having cardiac arrest, they're simulating it, which is fair. They have not been used extensively in research to date. Further, studying real cardiac arrest can be problematic because the large number of factors that may impact outcomes may not be within control of the team. So simulations provide a suitable context to conduct controlled evaluations. Nice. So a bit of justifying there. The simulations will be conducted in a mock hospital setting. The simulated cardiac arrest will mimic real cardiac arrest as closely as possible. The mixed method approach, okay, so reminding us that it's a mixed method research design, addresses 2 primary research questions, and they're here. All right, what do you think of the big picture here of just 2 paragraphs, which is a research proposal, introducing and broadly telling the reader about this research design? Obviously, the subsequent sections are going to give all the details. Do you have questions at the moment? Are you thinking, you know, oh, but what exactly are you doing? To be honest, I don't have any real questions because I trust that the details will be given later. And, you know, I'm feeling pretty on board with this. So let's go back. What are the aims of the beginning paragraphs of a method section? Totally to give the reader a broad overview of what's being done. And I really believe that's been achieved here. Do the 2 paragraphs have a clear connection or flow? What do you guys think? Does anyone want to say anything, or do you want me to say what I think? What I think? I think yes, right? This first one is giving us, and there's enough detail for us to imagine exactly what they're doing. But then they give us more information here. They're starting, so this one is saying, this is what I'm doing. But this one is really giving us the gap and giving us some justification. So I think it's very, very well written. What else? Which sentences explicitly state a research aim? Well, the first one does. I think this one does, don't you? This is a bit of a gap as opposed to an aim. Yeah, so I think they've done well. 2 sort of sentences telling us the aim. That's good. Is the value of the research explicit and clear? Now, what do we think there? I would say there. What do you think? Do you think it's explicit enough? Yeah, thank you in the chat. First paragraph is what, second is why. Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's giving us the value, but again, it's very broad, isn't it? I'm sure as we get further down, there would be more. And also don't forget, we've got those other 2 chapters that would have come beforehand. And something specific here. What do you think about putting the research questions in the methods chapter? I don't mind it. They probably are in the introduction, I would hope, or the lit review. So, you know, I think it flows well. It doesn't seem weird, does it? All right. So as far as our macro proofreading goes, like looking at the bigger picture, I think it's really good. What about the micro proofreading now? Is there a clear topic sentence? The aim of the present study, yep, beautiful. Love it. What about this one? While simulated arrests are an accepted method, they have not been used extensively in research to date. Yep, I think it's clear too. Because, you know, that could have been a question up here, right? Oh, they're going to do simulated cardiac arrests. How much are they going to find out about that? You know, they're simulated, they're not real. So I think that could be a question that someone might have about the research design, and they've answered it straight away. So I think that's good. Is the main point maintained? Let's have a look. I think so. So this is the aim, and this is how I'm going to achieve it. They're an accepted method of training. Well, we can't have people, we can't do research into real ones. Yep, so I think stays on topic. Look at the verbs. Are the tenses correct? And are there appropriate transition signals? Let's have a look. Yep, will be, because it's a research proposal, right? Yep, will comprise, will be. Well, that looks good to me. Further, that's just something as simple as that is a really good transition signal, and it engages us and keeps us knowing what's happening. So I think that's all a yes. Now, what do you reckon here? Mix up your vocab. That's what I would say. So additionally, moreover, furthermore, even. It's only something little though, but yeah. So I would give macro proofreading, big tick, micro, big tick. No, there's no citations in there, so we're not going to do that one, being the methods. But I imagine later on, there would be much more justification, and then they'd be pulling in citations there. Do all justifications for study design go in the method, or can it be in the intro? Yep, definitely in the introduction you would allude and give some really broad information about the research design and why you're doing it. And in the lit review as well. That's one of the purposes of the lit review, is to start to justify and say why you're using the research design that you're using by using the previous studies. Okay, so all of those first 2 chapters are not essentially about the research design, of course, but you will be alluding, planting the seeds, mentioning, to then give much more information in that research design chapter. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, hang on 1 second. All right, so welcome back, everybody. And if you've got any questions, we'll discuss those in the Q&A. But right now, what I want you to do is now go in and check your document. So you'll see after that exemplar 2 in the activity sheet, I've got those same steps there again. So try to go through those same steps with your own writing. I've just got there about having 2 windows open at the same time. I'm sure you guys know how to organize yourselves these days. Everyone's used to Zoom. So, and the other, you can just see there down the bottom, at the beginning, did you write down 2 aspects of your writing that you know you need to improve on? Maybe if you did, you can look at those when you're proofreading. Now, if you wrote down 2 things, ask yourself, are they to do with the macro or are they to do with micro? So that you can slot them in to whichever step is appropriate. So let's see here. So here is a little list of the steps. I'm going to leave that up on the screen. I'm going to mute, and I think we can give you guys a good 20 minutes now to go through your own document. See how you go, see if you like this idea of the macro and then the micro, adjust to suit what you need. I'm going to be here. If you've got a question, pop it in the chat. That would be good. And all right, you can go. I'll give you, yeah, I think 20 minutes will be great. Okay. Okay, so well done with your proofreading of your own work. Let's just finish off the session now and we'll go into our Q&A. So how did you go? So remember, this has been quite condensed because of our timing. Potentially you've gone through quite quickly. And as I keep saying, when you proofread on your own, you could even separate those 3 steps into different times, you know, particularly if you've got a complicated section or a long section, and then particularly when you're doing a whole chapter. And also remember that those macro proofreading questions, the ones about the big picture, will be different for each section or chapter. So always think about your purpose and your aim. What are you doing? What do you want the reader to know? That's all part of your big picture or macro proofreading. But as I also keep saying, every section, there should be something about linking what you've said back to the research problem or the aims or the gaps, or something linking back to your specific study. Yeah, so in the chat, someone said I couldn't help doing both. That's okay. Maybe you're so close to what you've written anyway. So the main reason of separating it out is to help you to be more effective. But if you're quite progressed in the way that you're proofreading and you're really actually quite good at it, it is possible to do both. But as long as you're aware of the differences between the 2 and, you know, that you don't sort of miss something, particularly with the macro. So if we're looking at the micro, if we're looking at the paragraphs, we sometimes miss the linking and the structure and the flow. So that's all, as long as you're aware. There's no right or wrong. You do what's best for you. So thank you for saying that. You know, I know that, yeah, if you're micro at the same time, which means fixing sentences, that's all right. And that might only take you a couple of minutes. But if all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this paragraph's completely wrong, I have to rejig it totally, it might take you away from that big picture. So that's all, as long as you're aware that they're 2 separate things. But if you're doing them at the same time, perfectly fine. And you maybe your academic conventions you're doing at the same time as well. But sometimes we need to do them separately. You decide what's going to work best for you. Right, so main takeaways. Essential part of the process is proofreading. Never submit a draft that you haven't proofread first to someone to ask them for feedback, okay? Even if it's just a really, if you're only giving a couple of paragraphs, well, then maybe the macro is not needed in that case. But if you're submitting a whole chapter or a big section, especially to your supervisors, please proofread first. As we said, break your proofreading into the 3 parts. Even if you don't do the 3 separately, be aware of the 3 different aspects. Attention to detail is essential. That's why I really encourage you to print and read aloud and annotate with a pen. And you know, the other thing with printing as well is we can use our finger, right, to keep pace so that our eyes don't skip ahead, which is what happens when we're on the screen. Honestly, your eyes skip forward, right? And know your weaknesses and focus on improving those. Now, if you know that you have a grammar point that you make errors in, so that could be articles, it could be tense, it could be plural, subject, verb agreement. If you know that you make an error often with that, or even occasionally, I know it's going to take the time, but you need to go through your paragraphs looking specifically for that grammar point, and then you'll find it and you'll be able to correct it and you'll get better and better and you'll make less and less errors. So, as always, we do have a feedback survey, which I would love for you guys to complete. You can use that QR code, or I've just put the survey link in to the chat. It's anonymous. It'll only take a couple of minutes. Just remember with those numbers, 5 is strongly agree, 1 is strongly disagree. So if you're very happy, it's a 5 or a 4. If you're unhappy, it's a 1 or a 2. Sometimes people mix the 2 up. So that would be fabulous if you would like to complete that survey. So today's resources, I actually put the slides up on Blackboard in a minute, and the recording, I actually don't know if it'll go up today, to be honest, but I will send you an email with all the links that you need either this afternoon or in the morning, and you'll have the recording as well. Don't forget, of course, always email me with questions, feedback. If you want the annotated version of the activity sheet, I would be happy to send you that. But at the same time, I'm just putting my email into the chat for you. But at the same time, you know, yes, okay, happy to give you the annotated version, but you might have different thoughts to me, and that's okay. As I said, you guys are the readers, so you can't be wrong. So email me if you want anything, have any questions. Now, if you want to know more, you know, with the macro and the micro. So the macro is the coherence, the micro is the cohesion. So we have workshops about coherence, or sorry, a writing circle on coherence, and we have a writing circle on cohesion. Now, they've already been done. For first semester, keep your eye out for second semester. You can see everything that's upcoming. I'll pop another link. So coherence, writing circle, cohesion. So they might be helpful for you with your proofreading. We've got next week, dealing with writer's block. We've got writing a research proposal, which some of you are at that stage. And I also do each semester, so we repeat in semester 2, all of our workshops and writing circles. And I do writing circles on each chapter of the thesis. I do writing your introduction, lit review, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion. So come along to those, or the ones that are applicable for you. You can see them all on that link that I just gave you for HiQ. Also coming up on the 21st of July, which is next week, if you haven't been to an MPhil symposium, regardless of whether you're doing an MPhil or not, I really recommend you do, because they're excellent. There's a Zoom link. You can just pop in on the 21st of July and look at some of your peers doing their presentations. We have a really great next Friday, or actually that's tomorrow, isn't it, MPhil? Yes. And Friday, industry engagement, if you're interested in internships, which is a really great way to find out what you want to do for your career as you move forward. And next Monday, a really great community of practice around research careers. So really, there's 3 good things coming up there, not to do with writing, but would be very useful for you guys. And as you know, everything's on Blackboard, all the previous recordings and resources, everything's on HiQ that's coming up. You get those HDR Matters emails with everything for the next week. And if you haven't done the HDR Skills Assessment Tool, I recommend you do. It will help you with a whole lot of those transferable skills and let you know all the training we have available. So that is it for the session. And if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat, or you can turn on your mics. And yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you went with the exemplar, or how you went with your own proofreading. Good question. So a question in the chat, a non-native speaker, I would love to know if, except as all that we discussed, there's specific tips for improving proofreading when English is not your first language. Yes, I mentioned it very quickly just then, but you would know by now, and if you don't know, ask your supervisors to tell you. You would know by now the grammar points that you sometimes make errors with, okay? As I said, if you're not quite sure, if you go onto Blackboard, we also have an academic writing tool that talks about the specific aspects of writing. But in terms of English, there's 4 or 5 main grammar points that non-native speakers have sometimes make errors with. So you will probably have 1 or 2 of these that you're making errors with. So sentence structure, so incorrect sentence structure, use of tenses, use of the definite article, so the, because sometimes in other languages you don't use articles. So that could be, and it's can be tricky if you're a non-native speaker. Subject verb agreement, and vocabulary would be the other one, sometimes not using the right word. So think about those 5 main grammar points that potentially you might have had feedback that you need to improve on. And I know it's a bit tricky and it can take a while, but what you would need to do, so say you know you make errors with articles sometimes. You need to look at your paragraph and you need to read each sentence and look at all of your nouns, because articles go with nouns. Look at all your nouns and check, do I need to have an article or do I not? There's lots of rules, I know. So another tip of those grammar points is sometimes, and I know sentence level exercises in grammar books can jog your memory a little bit. Sometimes we get into bad habits, and that might be you. If you're in a bad habit, you can go back to a grammar book, and an intermediate or an advanced one. You can borrow them in the library and just go to the grammar point that you know you're not sure about at the moment, and do some of those sentence level exercises just to get into the swing of it, and that will help you with your writing. I know sentence level is a little bit easier than actually your own writing, but honestly, that repetition and getting that understanding clear again in your mind, remembering you probably learnt English a long time ago. So you've forgotten some of the grammar points and the rules, or you've just got into bad habits. So really good question. When you're proofreading, focus on those couple of grammar points that you know you make errors with, and you'll get better and better at not only finding them and fixing them, so noticing them and fixing them, but then you'll also get better and better at actually not making the errors when you're writing. I hope that makes sense. In the breakout, we were discussing the difference between the aim of the lit review topic sentence versus the aim of the method topic. Can you explain on the topic sentences for each chapter? Yeah, I think you mean, so the topic sentences are to do with the paragraphs and giving the big broad point. So I don't think that's what you mean. I think you mean the difference between the sentences that's starting off each chapter. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry, I'll just elaborate. Basically, the first sentence of each paragraph is going to be doing a different thing in the lit review as opposed to the method. I was wondering if you could just and also in terms of alluding to the aim of the study. In the lit review, how much alluding to the aim of the study are you doing? How much explicitly are you stating versus something like in the method where you're more explicitly doing it because, of course, you're actually describing the aim and how you're going to achieve it. So how would you go about, what's the goal of the paragraphs in the lit review with respect to the research topic?
Yep. Okay.
That's sort of tying them together. Are we trying to, or are we more doing it in plain location?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So think of each paragraph as starting a new main point, and then within each section, each paragraph needs to build on the next one. And that's what sometimes is hard, because let's take your methodology or your research design. There's a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So which comes first? Sometimes the most important thing comes first. Sometimes with methodology, you want to go chronologically. So if you're doing a survey and then interviews, you're not going to talk about the interviews before you talk about the survey, right? So those beginning paragraphs of every chapter just give the reader a very broad idea of the aim of the study in terms of how it might link to the literature, right, for your lit review, or the aim of the study in terms of how it is going to link to your research design. And then also, because each chapter has a different purpose, that also comes into it as well. So think about the purpose of your methods or your research design chapter. You want to tell the reader that you have a robust research design, you want to justify it, you want to give them all of the details. So at the beginning, you would put a nice paragraph just saying, like the one we saw in example 1, where they told us exactly what they were doing, but they didn't tell us the nitty-gritty details. And then you expand on that as you go along. So each paragraph in section, after you've given that nice broad introduction, will then pull out each part of that and expand and give more details. I hope that makes sense and that answers your question. So that helps. Okay, yeah. So each chapter has a specific aim, as in lit review, analysing previous studies, making all your key terms very clear, saying how your research fits into the research story, but also it has to link to the aim of your study. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So probably that was probably the confusion, is each chapter has an aim, but you also have a research aim that you're aiming.
Yeah, and you're doing both. You're aiming to sort of do the point of the chapter, but you're also having to tie it all to the research aim in there. So there are 2 goals you have, and you're trying to balance both of them. And that's perfect. So there's one additional point that's sort of on the same topic, and that is the final or closing sentence of each paragraph. It both has to perform 2 goals. One is tie up the paragraph, but also generally you want that to allude to the next paragraph in some way, right? And I'm finding when the next paragraph isn't particularly related to the previous paragraph, like if I'm going from talking about kidney disease to talking about Indigenous Australians, I have to somehow say, and this is therefore something kidney disease, by the way, Indigenous Australians and kidney disease.
Yeah.
And
so good.
And
You
I can,
are,
is that like one long sentence or two short sentences, or?
So yes, you want, that's okay. Yes, you want to tie up the point, but you don't always have to connect to the next paragraph. If, as you say, the next paragraph is a different point, right? Sometimes you're gonna, so say when you're talking, say you're defining kidney disease, right? Or you're talking about this, the symptoms, or
symptoms, diagnosis, medical literature on statistics, that sort of thing.
So sometimes you'll have some points where you actually need 2 or 3 paragraphs to explain everything. In that case, yes, maybe that last sentence might be alluding to the next paragraph, but you don't feel like you have to do that every single time, because if as you say, you've got a paragraph that's explaining about, okay, defining kidney disease, and then the next thing is that you want to say in the next paragraph, hey, Indigenous Australians have a high rate of kidney disease. What would be more important is for your second paragraph to actually allude to what you already said, right? So maybe you said, you know, so you could say in the second paragraph something like, as discussed, or you wouldn't say as discussed, but you might say, you might say, okay, lots of Australians have kidney disease, but more specifically, Indigenous Australians have an even higher rate. So do you see, you can tie it that way.
So the first sentence of the following paragraph follows on in the first sentence, rather than alluding in the last sentence of the previous.
Maybe mix it up.
I see.
You can work it out. And it might not even be the first sentence. It might, because your first sentence is to say, well, maybe it'll be the second sentence.
That's actually the sort of thing I was sort of rattling around. And sometimes you want to introduce Indigenous Australians before you talk about the issue. So there's like 2 introduction sentences, one on the people that you're talking about, and one on the topic problem.
Yes.
So I'm glad that I can.
And you've really highlighted the fact that this is why it's hard. You have a lot of things going on. There's a lot of stuff to talk about right now. So be honest with your reader as well. And you can say in those at the beginning paragraph of a section or a chapter, you can say, hey, there's a lot of things going on. So I'm going to tell you about this first, and then I'm going to tell you about this. It's not that the second thing is less important. It's just that I want to scaffold you, right? So, I mean, you're not going to say that exactly, but do you see what I mean? Just keep the reader in the loop and let them know. And think of it again in your research design. Sometimes you're talking about things chronologically, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, but also, there could be, maybe you're doing 2 things at the same time, or maybe you have a theoretical framework or a conceptual framework that links in. You can't talk about everything at once. So that's why those sort of linking sentences that you're talking about, just set the reader up so that they can go, oh, okay, I can see you're going to give me more information later. Great. Or, oh yeah, I get that. Now I can see you're going to talk about that, and I can see they're both important, but you've sort of given me the broad, and then you're narrowing down or whatever it might be. So you're thinking of all the really good, effective writing processes and practices, but try, it's okay to have a paragraph sometimes that doesn't lead directly, right? But you can link in other ways. You can link with the beginning paragraph. You can link in the second paragraph. You can at the end say, hey, I've told you about all these things. They're actually all happening at the same time. And they're all essentially and critically important. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah, that really helps. Thank you.
Good. All right. Another question. Our group had trouble defining the aims. We were confused, not sure what author is trying to achieve. Is it a bad example? No, it wouldn't be. But if you're confused, that means it's not clear enough. Does that make sense? Defining the aims of the research. So what was that? That was from a lit review, wasn't it? So potentially it hasn't got the aims of the research in there, but it should, shouldn't it?
Yeah, there were holes. They kept mentioning holes. Second sentence, first paragraph, and first sentence, second paragraph talked about the holes in the research, but they never actually said what they were going to do with those holes. So
yeah. So it's a little snapshot. You would essentially imagine that that's talked about later, but yeah, see, so that's something that could have been improved. Yeah, so good. Good.
I'm glad to hear that, because we our group is really confused, thinking, oh, why, like, we can see there's some linking there, but it's not really clearly linked as per se. And then we're thinking maybe some introductory paragraph can be put in the preceding paragraph, telling people. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And as I said, with these exemplars, they're just a little snapshot. There's been a whole lot go before and a whole lot go after. But at the same time, you should be able to get from these exemplars what you need as the reader to see what's happening and see where they're going.
So that means, Carrie, for literature review, for each section, beginning of each section, should we always make some introductory? Okay.
Yeah, it could just be one sentence, right? It should just be a topic sentence at the beginning after the subheading, just to say, what do we mean by this? What does a subheading mean? Is there a definition you need? How is it linking? Just, you know, just to give something very broad for the reader to go, oh, okay, we're going to discuss this thing and you're going to give me all the more details as you go through.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, it's all about keeping the reader on board and letting them know, oh, okay, that's interesting. Yes, I get that. Okay, next thing, next thing, next thing. All right.
Hi, Carrie.
Hello.
I have a question, if there's still some time.
Yeah.
It's about linking your previous chapter. Like I'm talking about results section here, because like I've had a lot of issues like trying to write the introduction of, let's say, a result section, and in trying to like link the previous result chapter to the one I'm writing now, and also introducing like you've mentioned, the big picture. Like, I don't know, it just gets really confusing, and like, what order does it go? Is it like the big picture of the lit review first, and then you talk about what you already like, the findings from the previous section, and then how it relates to what this section is all about? So like,
so you've got more than one results chapter, is that what you mean?
yes, so I have 3. And
that's okay. Yep, that's okay. All right, so you have 3. So remember, in chapter 1 in your introduction, you'll have an overview of the thesis, right? So that's the starting point there to tell the reader, hey, I've got 3 results chapters. The reason for that is this, and the first one talks about something, second one talks about something, third one talks about something, right? So they're already expecting it. You set them up there. So, and it is just a sentence to say why have you got the 3 results chapters? Okay, and you'll have a reason. Tell them the reason, right? And then when you get to your first results chapter, you can say to the reader, this is the first of 3 results chapters. This results chapter focuses on whatever, it would be one aspect of your study, one sort of whatever you collected data and analyze the data, or whatever it might be. If you wanted to, probably a good idea, you then say to them, the second and third results chapters will extend on what's discussed in this chapter. That's all you need to say. You give your results then potentially at the end of that first results chapter, depends. Some supervisors don't like you to say what's going to be coming up next. Some people do, you decide. But you could potentially say, all right, this is the end of the first results chapter, give them the highlights, what you really want them to remember, and then say the next results chapter extends on this by presenting the results for blah, 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 right? Then your second results chapter, I would not say, hey, the previous results chapter did something. Don't tell them that. Just say this results chapter discusses or presents or does whatever, this part of the research design, so whatever data you collected, whatever, however you analyzed it, then you can say these results extend on the previous results chapter, okay, and then go into it. So just a couple of nice sentences at the end, not first in that second one, that will keep the reader in the loop and make them see that, okay, they know where you're going and they know where you've been. The reason why I say don't start a chapter with what you did in the previous chapter, it's not nice for the reader. Tell me what you're going to do in this one, then give me that sentence that just jog my memory that, you know, I'm extending on what I already told you, just in case for some unknown reason they jump straight to that second results chapter. Okay, because remember, every chapter needs to stand alone, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so at that point, like when you talk about what you're going to do in that chapter, is that where you introduce the gaps, you know, like the gaps you're trying to fill?
Very briefly, and then you extend as you go. Yeah, because remember, you've already told them about the gaps in the introduction and the lit review. So, yes. But yes, we need the reminder. So in that first paragraph or so of each of those results, when you're saying, this is what I'm doing, this is the results I'm presenting, remind them how you collected the data and analyzed it to get those results. Remind them where in your research design you're up to. Is it stage 1, stage 2, whatever it is? And, you know, and then also remind them what was the aim of collecting that data and analyzing that data, and how does it link to your research questions? Okay, so yes, you're very broadly just reminding them gently, okay, this is this part of my study, and then you give them all of it, and then you at the end give them the highlights, the recap, and then say this, you'll then extend in the next chapter, and then you'll have your 3. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. How is everyone? You all good? Yep, I will have a good lunch. Thank you. All right. Good questions, guys. Thank you so much. I love that you're really thinking hard about your writing and the reader. And as I say, you know, always email me if you have any questions, and I will get those resources out to you as soon as I can, so you can revise anything you need. Good. All right. Well, thank you for joining me, and I will see you all soon.